Once again, good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to Signia Healthcare. And today we are going to discuss about aseptic non-touch technique. I'm very sure all the words that we are right now spelling out, asepsis, non-touch technique, everything is known to all of us. Then you might be wondering what is there special about it. So I have thought of doing this session is only because I found this as a gray area during all my trainings, apart from other topics of infection prevention. But this is something that I have come across in 2012, and since then me and my team has always made this part of infection prevention topics, right? So, good picture. Welcome to the session. So, aseptic non-touch technique. Now, this you can see that this is a trademark. So, this belongs to this special organization ANTT, and this is under the umbrella of the Association for Safe Aseptic Practice. So it is a copyrighted principle, and it's also trademark. So I am using their original video and original presentation, and then I have made a little bit of modifications to ensure that the content is more relevant to our Indian hospitals. So why are we going to talk about this? Now it's very interesting to know there's not much data around Indian hospitals and problems, but a little bit that I could find out was that ICUs attached to 15 major hospitals in India. They did a study and they found 90% of ICU patients had hospital acquired infections. Study. How much it is getting reported? Is it available as a data in our country? That is very doubtful, that we don't have much data in India per se. Overall ICU mortality 26.3%. It may not be the same number for every single hospital, for about 15 hospitals. Now it's very interesting to understand that the study around hospital acquired infections talks about in developed countries, you may have 7 out of 100 patients getting hospital acquired infections, and in countries in low income, middle income countries, we fall in that category. It can be as high as 10. And 1 in 4 patients would have resistant microorganisms, and I'm very sure all of you are clear that these are all our problems also. Now as nurses we have a huge role to play, because that is what nurses are about, and most of the time we are the ones procedures on the patient, caring for the patients. We are doing invasive procedures, we are doing dressings, small dressings, big dressings, so we are doing all that stuff. Now as I told you earlier, that entity is a copyright. It's owned by and overseen by the Association of Safe Aseptic Practice. It's a non-profit organization. From from 2012, it has gone across Europe, Australia, New Zealand. They all have accepted this as a base principle for understanding what does this mean. It's actually very basic. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Now, why there was a need for this? Despite everyone being taught around asepsis and sterile and all kinds of infection prevention terminologies and processes, we all learn that. And when I ask in my classes also, you know what it is, and mostly everyone says, "Ki, we know what it is." But when I dig a little bit, then I come to know that it's not the case. So now, why? Because of poor understanding of the basic principles, and again attitudes of different people. We all know that we have to do hand hygiene, but all of us know how many of us will do hand hygiene diligently, and also how many of us will do the correct hand hygiene. And poor non-touch technique. Non-touch is an English word that means do not touch. Inappropriate equipment, poor hand cleaning, which I already told, and the environment. We all of us know that air is always full of organisms. So anything that is called sterile, the moment you open, it is no more sterile. All of us know that. And the physical environment also has an impact on the infection of going to happen in a susceptible patient. Not everybody is going to have patient, but infection. But susceptible patients can get infection. Now, a few terminologies we should be very, very thorough with. We should never get confused in that. Now, ANTT is a clinical practice framework to get a standardized, adherence to the way that we practice and care for patients. Now, asepsis, it means free from pathogenic organisms. That means asepsis means there are not pathogenic organisms. Sterile means it is free from all microorganisms, including spores. Clean means it is free from visible, dirt and marks and stains. So this is the basic understanding in this particular framework. Now, non-touch, action of not touching critical and important parts of equipments during a procedure. Now we are going to understand this in a very easy to understand manner. Now, why was this entity developed? Because it was we were not able to get a standardized way of getting people to do things. So this approach is based on the premise that safe aseptic technique is most effectively applied in a systematic and standardized manner. I think that's the most important thing, because it's very, very clear what is to be done, when it is to be done. And that is identifiable. That means you can actually see that is happening, and it is also auditable. That means you can audit people whether they are following the entity or not during their particular procedures. Now, this entire principles I will summarize as based around key parts and key sites. Now keep that keys in your mind, key sites and key parts. We'll be discussing about that. So what did we say ANTT is about? Because whatever the protocols which is there, it is easily identifiable. Second was it is auditable. Third one, it is about key parts and key sites. Okay, so we will try to understand them slowly. Now this is the complete umbrella of their entity approach. Actually talks about 6 core steps. We will understand each core step slowly, and then based on your risk assessment, you will decide whether you need a surgical entity or you need a standard entity. So that is the two wings that you have when you want to do a procedure. You are going to decide whether I need a surgical entity or do I need a standard entity. I am not going to confuse you with usual learnings that we have in our nursing curriculum. And I know when I came across this, I said, okay, nobody called all these things, but this is exactly what my teachers also taught me when I was learning nursing. But then this has become far more easier for people to understand how to do various procedures, and almost all of them are nursing procedures. So, as I told you, ANTT approach has 6 core steps. So, if you follow the 6 core steps, you are going to ensure that you are having a non-touch technique being used, and you will reduce the patient's in chances of getting any infection through that particular procedure, and everybody will do the procedure in the same manner. So key sites and key parts risk assessment. That is the first core step. I will explain to you the key sites and key parts in a moment, but let's first understand the 6 steps. The second step is environmental management. Wherever you are doing the procedure, you are going to take care of the environment. That also we'll see how to do that. Now, personal equipment, decontamination and management. Personal means whatever that you are using for the patient, you are able to decontaminate and manage. We will understand all this in details in a moment. Then there is aseptic field selection and management. That means when we do a procedure, there are critical fields that we do not touch, and we know that now that area should not be touched because it's already We in our parlor we used to call it as this is a sterile field. ANTT says the moment you open the set, air is there, air is always contaminated. So your field actually becomes, a critical field. Rather than saying sterile and unsterile, they call it as a critical field, aseptic critical field. So you talk about managing that field. Then non-touch technique. This is something without me learning about it. I have been using this for many, many years when I was in the ICU. That time I did not know that it is non-touch technique per se, but we were trained that we should not touch any area that is not supposed to be touched. Whether I have a sterile glove or an unsterile glove, I should not touch that part. So that way, you will eliminate any potential for introducing infection to patients. The last one is the decontamination. So now, maybe many of you have seen this. This is to talk about environment as a source of infection. This is a very famous, picture that is available on the internet where they took swab after this particular ICU unit was properly cleaned by the housekeeping. They took environmental swab. And what did they get? VRE. And you can see all these crossed areas which are there, all of them are, sorry about that, all of them are actually, sites from where they grew organism. Can you imagine a new patient coming here and the patient is susceptible? Then what happens? Very easy to catch the infection. So keep that in mind, that this is also part of the procedure that we are doing. So in the hospital, we have to pay attention to the environment. This is very, very important. We are not in the war field or out in a disaster area that you don't have control on the environment. We do have control on the environment. So let's look at the 6 steps. Key part and key site assessment. Second one, as we said, environmental management, personal equipment and decontamination, aseptic field selection, no touch technique, decontamination. Now, you don't have to memorize all these things, but some basic understanding of each step is very important. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, once you are going to do the procedure, you are going to first decide, am I going to use a surgical ANTT or am I going to do a uh, standard ANTT? Don't make it into medical. It is called standard ANTT. Okay. So first of all, you will decide based on your key sites and key parts. So question is going to be asked. So let me skip that and come here so you can see the screen far better. So key sites and key parts, the question that you are going to ask, let me skip that. I'll come back to this one. Look at this slide. This is very easy to understand. First of all, when you do the risk assessment, ask yourself, can I perform this procedure without touching the key parts? Without touching, whether I am wearing sterile gloves or whether I am wearing clean gloves or it is my bare hands, whatever is the procedure, you're going to ask, can I do this without touching the key parts? We will learn the key parts, then everything will be clear for you. If you can say yes, then you go for standard ANTT. That means you can go that route. If no, you have to go for the surgical ANTT. Now, in standard ANTT, key parts are protected individually with microcritical aseptic fields. Now, just hear these words. Don't worry, we will understand in a manner. Micro means small, critical and aseptic. That means something is protecting that area so that you don't have to touch. And in the surgical ANTT, they are all protected in a collective manner. The entire area is protected. So the second thing is non-touch technique is mandatory in standard ANTT because you already decided that each small items are protected. So if I don't touch them, patient will be safe. But in the surgical ANTT, you are not very sure. It's a larger area that is going to be covered. So it is desirable to follow the non-touch, but sometimes you may not be able to follow non-touch completely, which is fine. And if it is standard ANTT, no gloves or non-sterile gloves, no gloves or non-sterile gloves, you can do the procedure with that also. Clean gloves also, you can do that with standard ANTT. In surgical ANTT, sterile gloves is mandatory. So these are little differences. I'm sure that you can get that very quickly. Both techniques must also consider the environment, the procedure invasiveness, how invasive is the procedure, the amount of and complexity of key parts and expected duration of the procedure. How long is the procedure going to be? I would like you people to, put it in the chat box. I'm going to ask a quick question. There are two procedures, IV cannulation and the central line insertion. Now tell me which one will fall into standard ANTT, which can fall into surgical ANTT. Maybe some of you can just put it in the chat box. I know that you cannot speak up, but that's fine. IV cannulation and central line insertion. Okay. So we got someone answering. Standard ANTT is IV cannulation. Awesome. Very good. Krupacha is telling central line is surgical. IV standard. Okay. Great. That means all of you are getting the basic of, deciphering whether it should be standard or whether it should be surgical. Okay. Let's go back to this particular chart and try to understand this a little bit quickly. Environmental management. Environmental risk removed or avoided. Working areas and surfaces disinfected. Staff activities strictly controlled. This is in the surgical ANTT. So very easy to understand that when you're doing an invasive procedure, like you're putting a central line, you don't want too many people to be around the patient. You are using a full body barrier. So you are actually making sure the environment is totally, aseptic, and all the other things are removed. When you put the sterile sheet on top of the patient, so you are actually avoiding or eliminating all the risk that can come from the environment. Now, decontamination and protection, hand cleaning, surgical hand scrub, sterile gloves, and suitable. So, all the PPE that is required to be worn during that procedure, you will wear in surgical ANTT. Now, scrubbing the IV hubs. We will come to that in a moment. Okay, that's a very critical aspect of ensuring that we are properly decontaminating everything. Now, aseptic field selection and management. Now, look at that. Critical aseptic field, key parts are protected within one main critical aseptic field, like you are opening a central line set. So, it is a large aseptic field, or you are doing a large dressing. So, that time also you open a set, so it's a large, so even in the OT, it is the same thing that's going to happen, because the OT, the entire patient is covered, and then your OT table, where the equipments are opened. That's the entire larger critical aseptic field. So all of them are protected in that large area. Only sterile equipment can be placed in the critical aseptic field. That we know that when there is a sterile area open, in that you will only put sterile items. You will not put any clean items into that for sure. And for all of it, you need a sterile gloves, and it is managed critically. Managed critically means you're always paying very serious attention that am I touching the right thing in the right manner. And then non-touch technique is desirable. Non-touch means you're not touching an area that you don't need to touch. This is what it is. Even if you are wearing sterile gloves, this is something I would really like you to take it home. Whether you are wearing a sterile gloves or you are not wearing gloves or you are wearing clean gloves, if you always know that some parts I should not touch and I should avoid it, it's always a good practice to have, especially those who are working in emergency and ICU, etc. In emergency and ICU, everything are happening in such a fast mode that if your fundamentals are wrong, you can harm the patient without knowing. So that's why we need to pay attention to some foundational principles. So coming to the standard ANTT. Here also, environmental risks are removed and avoided. Work surfaces are cleaned and disinfected. So, if I am going to do IV cannulation to a patient, am I going to put my tray just on the cardiac table where there is water and other things on the tray? Are we going to put it there? Can I have the answer in the chat box? Can I put my IV tray at the bedside of the patient on the cardiac table where many other things are there? You are not supposed to do that. If you are preparing medications, you are not supposed to do that. Now, the question to ask ourselves, do we always practice that? We may have logistic issues. So, we'll have to ensure that our cardiac table is always kept free for these kind of procedures. And you have to take 2 minutes extra to get that cardiac table. Never ever open any sets on the patient's bed. This goes without saying. That's no way you can open a sterile field on the bed of the patient. Many years ago, I have also practiced this, that you open the sterile set in between the patient's leg. Long time ago, maybe 35 years ago, when you don't have anything, you ask the patient, just separate your leg and we open there and then we do the dressing very quickly. I mean, maybe the older nurses might agree with me, but today's state, never ever do that. Hand hygiene is there for all procedures, with surgical or standard, it doesn't matter. Hand cleaning, they call it hand cleaning, the same has to be used. And it's also important that you have to use whatever PP is required for that particular procedures, you will do that. Now, I'm very sure all of you know what are standard precautions and transmission based precaution. Those principles are to be understood in its entirety, and this is an umbrella on top of that. That principles, they are not going anywhere. Today we don't have time to discuss about that, but please keep that in mind. Now, understand what are microcritical aseptic fields. Easy to understand. If you have IV cannula, central line, the cap, the connections, all those things which are touching. So let me give you a pictorial explanation of key site and key parts. So let's look at the IV cannula. I have put a IV cannula here. The portal of entry site. For me, that is the critical site. Critical site. So what does that mean? When I am putting a cannula, after I have disinfected the area, I should not touch that site again. The knowledge, the theory getting translated into practice. But very often, this is what we do. After cleaning, we will see, we'll go and touch once again. It's a very common malpractice, I should say. So once you understand this ANTT, that means you will not touch. That's a very common mistake that happens with IV cannula. The other thing that could happen when we are actually preparing patients for procedure or we are doing the procedure, it doesn't matter whether I am doing a blood culture, whether I am putting cannula, whether I am doing central line dressing, central line insertion, we use disinfectants or antiseptics, right? We use antiseptics. Chlorhexidine, betadine, 70% alcohol. It doesn't matter. We are using something to disinfect the area. One of the common mistake, again, what we do is we do not allow the antiseptic to dry. I would really request all of you sitting here, just put this in your head. Wherever you put antiseptic, we call it antiseptic disinfectant, allow that to dry. And it's the same principle that you are using when you are putting hand rub also. You are using hand rub, that hand rub should dry on your hand. Yes? So we'll be talking about that a little bit more details in a little while. So you have the key parts. So you have a IV cannula. The cannula is actually inside my body. It is touching my blood vein, right? Now to the cannula, I put an extension. So the extension where it is connected to my cannula, that becomes a key part. Then there is the tubing. That is not a key part because it is not directly in touch with the inside of my body. Then it gets connected to the IV set. So the IV set that gets connected to the three-way, that becomes another key part. So this is how anything that is getting attached to the patient's inside is called the key part. We will be looking at some pictures to make sure that we understand that concept very easily. So key parts are you always protected with individual microcritical aseptic fields. So it's a little longer word, but what it means is that something is used to protect that area. So we can do without touching, okay, without touching that particular area. Now, general aseptic field, which is happening in standard ANTT. So when I'm doing IV cannulation or I'm giving medication, IV medication is that all this, connections and caps are also, it is there. So they are all our critical fields, but non-sterilized equipment may be placed in the aseptic field. That means this is not a surgical ANTT, so we may keep our non-sterile items in the same field, which is okay, which is managed generally. So when I am giving an injection, IV injection, it's not that everything that I take is going to be totally sterile. Everything is not opened on a totally sterile field. That's why we call it as, standard ATT. Then non-touch is absolutely mandatory when you're doing standard ANTT. So that's the basic of surgical ANTT and standard ANTT. So this one we already discussed. So let's move on and try to understand by definition what are key sites and key parts. Area of skin penetration, as I told you, point of entry. So what happens? Central line site, jugular site, hemodialysis catheter site, the sheath site, all that where the skin is, broken and you are creating a hole to enter into the patient. When you have a surgical wound, the wound itself becomes in a key site, where things are, the skin is broken. So that is called key sites. So it can include surgical wounds and all the entry points or exit point, whichever way we call it, for all the central venous access devices and peripheral venous catheter placement. So anything that we put inside the body of the patient, the where it enters, that becomes the key site. Very easy to remember and understand. Key parts, as I told you, are all the things that gets connected, and there is a possibility of harmful organisms going through those key parts. That's why it's very important to protect them. So in that case, what does that mean? Never ever an extension should be left open. It has to be protected by a sterile cap, right? So once we understand these basic principles, we are always, watchful on our patients. I mean, that's the role of the nurses. Once we know all these basics, this is what we are trying to learn. Now look at the picture. I would like you people to mentally, look at this and say what could be the key parts. Think of all the connection points which is going to be in touch with the patient's inside of the body, not outside, inside. So all of them are, intravenous related, equipments, intravenous related equipments. So we are going to understand what could be the key parts. I'll just give 10-15 seconds for you to mentally do a tick in on the picture itself, and then I will put the next picture where you actually will see the key parts. Then you can tell yourself that whether you got 100% marks or little less, whatever. Doesn't matter. Both ways you're going to learn. Okay. 10 seconds over. So let's go look at it. I hope all of you got these things right. So if you look here, the needle will be connected to a syringe. So obviously this becomes a key part because this fluid is going to go inside the patient's body. So this becomes a key part. This is your clave connector. This is a key part because you will be connecting your syringe over here, and here it's already getting connected to the catheter. So that is a key part. Look at this one, regular vial and your syringe. You're going to prepare the medication. This is your key part because you're going to withdraw into the syringe. So this is wherever the connections are happening. If you look at it, all of them are, covered and protected, but they are key parts. What would that mean? I am not going to touch those parts. I can do my procedures without touching them. And that is what the practice is going to make you perfect. And I know that this is what we always practice, and I'm sure that many of you are practicing even if you are not aware of it, because we know that we cannot touch those parts. But now putting that into a framework becomes more easy to understand and practice again and again and again. So here you have syringe tip, that is key part. The needle tip, key part. Even this will be key part. The cross is missing. And on this IV set, you can see all the puncture sites, where you're going to puncture the bag, that is a key part. Your injection ports are key parts, and the end of the IV tubing that will get connected, that also becomes key part, right? So I think now we have a good understanding of key sites and key parts. Now let's look at the main sources of microbiological contamination. How can it happen? It can happen because of the air environment. The air environment, it can cause airborne contamination. Healthcare worker, who is the most famous source of infection in hospital. We are the most famous source. Out of that, our hands are the most dangerous equipment that we can carry inside the hospital, because with hands we transfer lot of organisms. Then the procedure working space, wherever that you are going to do the procedure, there can be direct and indirect contact contamination. So we don't want that to happen. Now this is what we are trying to break down in our entire ANTT approach. So each one, as you are doing, in you are thinking, when I do the procedure, what is the risk? Can the air become a potential source of infection? Can the environment, infect the patient if I don't decontaminate? So all of them are connected with each other, and the preventing cross infections becomes very important when you think of indirect contact. So if you have done a procedure, let's say that I have done IV cannulation. Okay, I've done IV cannulation. I'm going to the end of the procedure. I finished doing it and I gave my tray to my GDA. Please, discard this. So he will discard the sharps, cannula, everything. He will discard everything and he will just leave the tray there. Maybe it is not visibly dirty, but it is used for another patient, right? And when the next nurse comes to use the tray, if she does not disinfect that tray and she takes it to the next patient, what do you think? Is there a chance of cross infection? It's indirect, it's not direct, it's indirect. Is there a chance of cross infection? Yes, no? You can do it in the chat box. Yes, no? Yes? Who is sharing lyrics here? Please. I would like you people that please don't do this here in the chat box. Can you remove that person, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So we need people who are serious about learning how to protect patients. Let's not misuse this opportunity. Okay. The first thing is the risk assessment. I'm very sure that now you can decide whether I need a surgical ANTT or a, standard ANTT. It all depends on the technical difficulty. As I told you, can I do the procedure without touching the key parts? That's the only question that you need to ask. And if the answer is yes, then you can go for standard ANTT. If it is no, you will go for surgical ANTT. Now, make sure that your environment is clean for the particular procedure. Then decontaminate and protect. That means you will do your hand cleaning. PPE as required to be given, the equipments needs to be disinfected, the key sites and key parts needs to be disinfected, and the aseptic field will be taken care of. You know that you know where you can touch, where you cannot touch. And then use the non-touch technique, and when you finish the procedure, you are going to ensure that you return everything. I am very sure all of us learned in our basic nursing time that when we do the procedure, there is something called a pre-procedure phase, the procedure phase, and the post-procedure phase. Pre-procedure is the time when you're preparing. So when you are looking at preparing time, think of ANTT. It will help you how to prepare, where to prepare. Then do the procedure, and then post procedure, discard all the things that you have used. Make sure that your items are again disinfected and kept back from where you have taken. I'm very sure this is what we all learned. So now the 6 actions can protect patients every time. So now this is a competency that they check for all nurses in the NHS, and I'm sure that those who have gone to UK, they know this very well, that this is the approach of ANTT. So we will be actually now looking at least one procedure to understand ANTT in more detailed manner. So we will take some more time to explain to that. I'm keeping a watch on the time also. So during invasive clinical procedures and the maintenance, maintenance means you are doing IV dressing, or you are giving the central line dressing, you are giving catheter care, key parts and key sites. You know for sure then where I can touch and where I should not touch. So hand touch contact, contact with compromised equipment. So if you touch the area that you are not supposed to touch, it simply means I have increased the risk of hospital acquired infection in that patient. So maybe the best thing is I should not be touching. So we are going to look at one procedure. They have very nice pictorial procedural steps, which is easily available on the internet. So you can download them if you are interested to understand. Because if you actually start checking everyone using the pictorial, it's a very, very useful learning tool as well. It's very, very easy. Okay. So we are going to understand when you give intravenous therapy, how can you use the 6 stages of the ANTT. So let's get into that. So let's say that you are going to give IV preparation and IV medication preparation and administration. This is what you are going to do. So typically these are the things that you will have. You'll have a medicine. So we have to go through these 6 steps. So let's see. So what is the risk assessment? So we are going to ask ourselves key part and site risk assessment. So when I am giving IV preparation and administration, so let me ask all of you, do you think that we can do the procedure without touching the key parts? Yes, no. I can do the procedure without touching the key parts. Can I have some answers? Okay, great. A lot of people are saying yes, correct. So just be very, very, you have to have a visual way of, answering the question. Then you will know, yes, I can do the procedure without touching the key parts. So obviously, so what is the ANTT technique I should be using? Which ANTT technique I should be using? Can you put that in the chat box, please? Which is the ANTT technique I should be using? ANTT technique, what should I use? There are 2 techniques we just learned. Out of that, which one will I use? Thank you. I don't have the name, but Redmi 9 said it is standard. Yes, it is standard NTT. Okay, great. So it is standard NTT that I am going to take, right? This stage is worth looking in some detail because we need to understand that where we are going to touch now. Risk assessment, administering an antibiotic into a peripheral cannula using ANTT approach. So we have an antibiotic and then we prepare that and we give it to the patient, right? So let's say this is the tip of the IV cannula and this is my medication. Okay, so I can do this without touching any of the key parts. These are my key parts here. I can do it without touching. So I asked the question, is a critical aseptic field required to protect key parts like a sterile drape or something? The answer is obviously we don't need, because they are all small key parts and they are all with their own connections or covers. So I am not going to touch them in any way. So that means the the technicality of the procedure is quite simple. So that's why you answered that a standard entity is good enough. That's very good. And now let's think about administering an antibiotic into central line. Think about the same question. Can I do the procedure without touching the key parts? Answer yes or no, please. Can I give my antibiotic into the central line without touching the key parts? Good. Thank you. Some of you are getting very confident. Yes, yes, yes. Correct. I can give medication without touching the key parts. So what happens? See, in most of our ICU, this actually has become kind of a sterile procedure. That's what we usually say. But answer here is I can do that. I don't need a special sterilized drape, because the catheter is going to be open and it is going to be lying down in an area. No, I can ensure that these parts are not being touched or touching anywhere else. Not only my hands, maybe not touching the patient's dress or any other area on the patient. So again, it is not. So there are all few key parts and they are all protected by individual caps and covers. So I can use a non-touch technique. So the question definitely will be, by this assessment, we know that giving IV medication in central line is exactly as peripheral IV cannula. Correct? I'm very sure that you are going to say yes. Then why should we have different procedures for both? This is the question they asked in A. So your decision or surgical ANTT and standard ANTT has nothing to do with what is the type of IV access and what is the patient's diagnosis. You are saying in both I can give the medication without touching the key parts. So obviously what happened there, that we will say I always used a sterile technique for central access. That means I used a sterile. But if you look back, only thing that we use when we are giving central line medication is about wearing a sterile gloves. That's all we do. But we are opening the syringe and we are touching, we are preparing the syringe. All those things are not going into a larger sterile field, right? So technically, a sterile technique is not required and it is not even possible, right? But let me tell you, in most of the ICUs in India, maybe people are using sterile gloves. There is a possibility. Okay. And I will tell you why we are using the sterile gloves. This is just in case. You never know. Just in case somebody touches the critical parts, then that could be a problem. So that is why we are not very sure of what we are doing. So we end up using sterile gloves. Now, you can also imagine today we are not talking about financials, but we know that if we use the right methodology, your resources can also be used the best way possible. A reusable tray instead of a sterilized drape and non sterile gloves and non touch technique is good enough rather than having sterile gloves. Now, when we use tray, are we doing it the right way? Is the question. I mean, that I can tell you that we are not very diligent about how we prepare that tray also. So, that is something that we need to get into. We'll come to that, pictorial guide in a moment. The second thing is about environmental management. So you are doing that to ensure that your environment is clean. You are not preparing all that in a totally chaotic environment. So it is dirty, here is dirty, here is dirty. It's almost like, you're in a kitchen and the entire kitchen is dirty and you're trying to cook. So obviously contamination of food can happen. So it's very important that environment, you can't do anything about the air for sure, but the environment that I'm doing the procedure can be made clean, right? It can be made aseptic by using my disinfectant. Decontamination and PPE, you will decide cleaning hands, gloves, and disinfect key parts. Now, the word scrub the hub. If any one of you are saying, I am going to clean the hub, then it is a wrong word, because cleaning is just doing like this. So this is my, if this is my key part, this is my, let's say, the end of my center line, I want to clean. So I will take alcohol swab and I will just simply clean. But the recommendation is to scrub. Scrub means put some friction, and I have to do this, right? So 15 seconds I'm supposed to do that, another 15 seconds to allow it to dry. So that's why in some documents you will find this as 30 seconds. So the minimum time that is required to decontaminate by scrubbing is 15 seconds minimum. So each organization will say 15 to 30, some will say 20 seconds, some will say 30 seconds. But allowing it to dry is very important. So when I do class, if I say, why do we want to allow it to dry? So answer sometimes is that no, the alcohol may go inside the patient. Yeah, that is a possibility. But the most important thing is that the disinfectant or the antiseptic that you are using, chlorhexidine, betadine, alcohol, they cannot do their full job if you do not allow it to dry. Just keep that in mind. It is very, very important. In your hand rub also, you have to allow it to dry, but by doing all those steps, you actually have your hand totally dry if you have taken enough of that antiseptic. Aseptic field management, that means you are ensuring that none of the key parts and sides you are touching, they are all covered. So same with that same principle, obviously none of the caps should be anytime blood stained. If you remove a cap and you find that there is blood, you are supposed to change the cap. Do not try cleaning it and putting it back. You have to find a way to get new caps. So that's a total different discussion, that how do you get new cap every time. So that is for your nurse managers to think, how can we get new caps every time. Then, of course, non-touch technique and decontamination, that disinfecting all the key parts and key. And also, I will definitely include decontamination after the procedure. This is very, very important, that you should decontaminate after the procedure. Very important. Now, the picture which is here is this is the kind of checklist that they have introduced. So they have got checklist for IV cannulation, IV medication, dressing, catheterization. I think there is also for blood culture. So if you want, you can always go to the Google and you can find. And when you go to get your certificate on our website to give the test, there is one PDF I have uploaded that you can download, but they don't have this, but they have all the theory part of ANTTs there, those who want to learn more about this. Okay. So now look at this picture. This is the peripheral central intravenous therapy, preparation and administration. So it is the same checklist, whether you are giving IV, peripheral IV cannula, or central venous access, So it is by picture that we are going to look at. Now, I will leave this for about 10-15 seconds here. I would like you to look at the picture and tell me that which numbers. You can see all the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go through it gently and put in the chat box that in our hospital, in our practice, in my ICU, in my ward, wherever we are, what are the steps that could be problematic, or we may not be doing, or we may be missing. So just put those numbers in your chat box. Put those numbers in the chat box. Take few minutes, no problem. If you are thorough with the procedure, you will know pretty soon that where is the shortcut that could be happening when we are doing the procedure here. Okay, I'm already getting some numbers here. Very good. Okay, 2 and 6, 2 and 6, 2, 10. 10 is also a problem. Okay, I think we are becoming pretty honest in picking up our own, weaknesses. I think as long as we are, getting it, then there is an intention to improve ourselves. I think the entire class is intended to improve the practice and protect our patients better. Okay, 6 and 8, 2 and 10. Some numbers are appearing again and again, so that means that's a common thing, common problem that we are facing. So now let's start looking at this first. Number one, of course, is your hand hygiene before you start preparing the tray. So that is number one. I think this step probably will be done. I still have some queries on some more steps. So let's say that you have done the hand hygiene. Okay. Number two, after you did the hand hygiene, you are preparing the tray. According to local policy, I would say that you can use an alcohol swab, clean the inside first and then the outside. Now the question is, first of all, whether we clean the inside even. And if we are cleaning the inside, are we cleaning the outside? Now, this is very, very clear. This is a kind of a checklist, pictorial checklist. So it's very easy to train somebody and it's very easy to audit also someone, right? So this step number two is a query in our thing. First of all, whether there are enough trays for all the nurses is another question. If they don't have enough trays, then there is a problem. How will they prepare? They should have enough trays, right? Number three, while the tray is drying, so there is a good planning also. You have cleaned the tray. You need to imagine. So I kept the tray for drying, and meanwhile I'm getting my supplies, what I need. I need my medication, or if I am preparing at the bedside, I have cleaned the tray and I'm keeping it. I am taking out the antibiotic, the syringe, the alcohol swab, whatever that is required. I am taking all that and I have kept it around the tray. Now, where you are keeping this around the tray is also important. In our Indian setting, this is also important. Is it on a table or on cardiac table, wherever it is? It's a good idea to wipe that down also. Okay. So now you kept all the things around. Now the next question is this step of hand hygiene. And I know that this step is very commonly missed, though I did not see many people writing number four. But when we did an audit, when I was in Fortis, this is one step that we found was missing. So what we call the mantra here is just before wearing gloves, just after wearing gloves, hand hygiene is mandatory. So 221 people sitting in the class. If you get this right inside, there is no confusion. When should I do hand hygiene? I did it at the beginning, so I don't have to know. Before wearing the gloves, soon after removing the gloves, two occasions where you cannot do without hand hygiene. I think this is something very easy for us to memorize for life. So this is very important. You can use hand rub or you can use soap and water. It doesn't matter. You are doing a hand hygiene. After that, you are wearing your gloves. Okay, you are wearing your gloves after that. And now a moment around our hand hygiene or hand rub. I am very sure all of us are aware of the hand rub and hand wash, the steps, WHO, the 6 steps, the famous steps. We all know the duration also. I know. We all know. Now, only thing that I would like to emphasize is about three things when you are doing hand hygiene. Now, this is something that you can definitely reinforce to yourself and also maybe share with your friends and colleagues. So before that, let's see that the one thing that I would like to see is that all of us can do a namaste activity. If those who are watching the video, Maybe you would like to put your hand together like this, and you can see that inside my hand there are areas that I am not touching. Yes, I'm very sure you are aware of those areas which are not touching. Similarly, when I do this also, there are areas which are not touching. Now pay attention to this rotational rubbing of thumb. Now, this is very important that this should not be like this, just holding the thumb and doing like this, because this is one area that will be most commonly missed. So that's why this hand is doing the other way around. I usually like to do it this way. I keep my thumb here. You can see I keep my thumb, and then I clasp like this and I come up. So I can actually clean here and clean here. When I am rubbing this is how. I always advocate for this activity because you can make sure the most neglected area can be covered with hand rub or soap and water. And of course, you know the rest of the guidelines for hand hygiene, not having any jewelry, thread, no nails, etc. I'm not going to get into that because that's not our class focus today. So, about the effective hand hygiene, so I would like you to take home three things I usually train when it comes to hand rub and hand hygiene. Very important to remember. The some of my students who are in the class, they it's a reputation for them. Doesn't matter. When I'm taking hand rub, what is the amount of hand rub that I am taking? It's very, very interesting if you actually start observing people, how much of hand rub each one is taking, and our hand size is very different. So obviously the surface area is also very different. The jar may say, 2 press or 5 ml. How do you know that I am taking 5 ml? How do you know that how much did I press? Some people can press it and get quantity. Some people may just touch it and get, less quantity. So that amount of hand rub. So the best way to say is whatever is the size of my hand, make sure that I make a good cup of my hand so that this thing should get filled with the hand rub. And usually with 2 press, this thing is usually, filling up. And if you are not very sure, once people are filling it up, go take a syringe, measure it, and see that what is the ml that is coming for different people. So I should take enough amount of the hand rub. The second one is about duration. How long. So we all say okay, 20 to 30 seconds. So I usually advocate that do not teach them 20 to 30 seconds, remember 30 seconds. So you will definitely reach at least 20-25 seconds. And very nice way of keeping the timing, maybe is a good way, is to remember singing happy birthday. So if you sing that happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me. So when you sing that and you time yourself, and you will see that in about twice when you repeat the song, you actually hit, and it depends on your speed, how fast you are singing. I can also sing happy birthday to me, or I can say happy birthday. So it depends on your speed also. So you will know that which speed will give me about 20 to 30 seconds. This is almost like the BLS, no? How do I compress the chest 100 to 120? Nobody is going to watch me. So there is a rate that we get, no? There we learn 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the rhythm that I can say that because of the practice. Those who are sitting here, students, the young nurses, you need to practice the right thing the right way for 10,000 hours to make it an automatic thing. Sachin did not become great at batting by sitting, just, listening to lecture. No, we listen to lectures for us to understand the principles. Now, most important is to transfer the learning to your workplace. So, amount, duration, and the last very important is the friction. For the friction only, the six actions are given by WHO, right? Now if our six actions are going to be very nicely patting the hand, 1 2 3 4 5, no friction, 1 2 3 4 5, nothing is going to happen on the hand. Your hand rub is not spreading, it is not disinfecting my hand. So your hands are as dirty as I started. So very important to pay attention to the amount, duration, friction. I would request all the young nurses, when you go back, do this exercise. See that how many ml of hand rub is coming when I am pressing it once, when I am pressing it twice, when I press hard, when I press less, how much it is coming. And please watch. Are you rubbing your hands without any hand rub at all? Because your hand rub is finished. It's all dried up, and then you are simply, going on rubbing. You should have something to rub in, no? So you should have that. So that is why the amount becomes very important, and the duration, because that's required to make sure hands are not going to harm the patient. So please keep that in mind, though not required to discuss, but I am compelled to talk about it because this is something I have, witnessed many, many, many times. Now, putting on the non-sterile gloves, because you are going to prepare the medication. Okay, so you are going to prepare the medication. Now, here, one of the requirement why you are wearing clean gloves is to protect the nurse or the doctor from drug exposure. That is a requirement from COSH is their body in UK, OSHA will be the body in US, and in India, I don't know the equivalent body. So it is also to protect the patient in case you inadvertently touch the key parts. You don't want to touch the key parts, so but you are also protecting yourself. Now with the gloved hand, you are preparing. So now you are not touching here or here anywhere, but you are using your hands, and then you finish preparing the drugs. Now in the tray, how do you keep the things is also important. So we are going to do that. Now, what is and what is not permitted in the aseptic tray? So what you have prepared is an aseptic tray. Ideally, nothing goes in the tray which is not required for the procedure. Very important. What you need to give to the patient is all that you should have in the tray, nothing else. So you will have the syringes and the alcohol wipes that is required for the procedure. You will have it. So now this is a tray, and you have all the syringes, and you can see that these are my key parts, right? And they are all covered with this syringe. So your tray has been disinfected, and my medications are here. Or you can even keep them inside the sterile cover that you just opened. You can have that also. So you are protecting the key parts. So the paper wrapping is dry. So it is, and from that only the syringe has come out. So you can keep the paper wrapping and put the syringe back in that. But it must have this cover. Without that cover, you cannot put the needle inside here. Then it is no more the correct procedure. So it is very important we are protecting all the microcritical aseptic fields. Okay, now my tray is all organized, and now I can go and expose the central line or the peripheral IV line. So you can expose means not the dressing, the connection point where you are supposed to give the medicine. So I can expose that, and now comes removing my gloves. Now, just before the procedure, I am going to do now one more. Once I remove the gloves, what should I do? What should I do once I remove the gloves? What should I do? Wash hands. Okay. Very good. Hand hygiene. Okay. Hand hygiene is a good word to use. Hand hygiene covers whether it is washing or whether it is hand rub, it doesn't matter. So that's what you are going to do. So I have put here this animation is only because this is one step I think that we could be missing, because we may not use the gloves after I have prepared the medication, and after that I have to apply another set of gloves. Now this is the question, are we doing it, are we not doing it? So unless and until we go back and audit our practice, you never come to know. Now the clean the key parts. Now they do recommend having larger alcohol wipes, not having those tiny weeny things, because you cannot scrub it well with that, so otherwise you will have to take two or three. So use large wipe, that is their recommendation. And applying friction, you scrub the hub for about 20 seconds Once again, allow it to dry. That will take another 15 to 20 seconds. Otherwise, you can follow the manufacturer. So the key parts, if they are not dry, they are not considered aseptic. It's the same thing with the key sites also. Wherever you are putting, disinfectant, you have to make sure that it is dry. So we should know if it's not dry, it has not been made aseptic. So that's very important. So now we are going to inject the IV, and again you are not touching the key parts. Even if you are wearing the gloves, you are not going to touch. You can stabilize it if you want from here, but you will not touch this key parts. So you are not touching the key parts. And then of course you dispose the sharps and the equipment that is used immediately. And the step that you said that we may forget is to clean the tray again with your wipes. Okay, not doing so is a perfect way of cross infecting patients and your colleagues, because as I told you earlier, the tray is already contaminated, and if you have not disinfected, the next person may pick it up and that can transfer organisms. So it is the same thing for all kinds of procedures, right? Now dispose the gloves. After that, again, wash your hands. Soap and water or alcohol drop. Now, we all know that when soap and water needs to be used, when your hand is visibly dirty, you have to use the soap and water. Otherwise, hand rub can be used. Okay. Now, after removing gloves, again, I again emphasizing that immediately after removing the gloves, you have to perform the hand hygiene before you touch any other area. It doesn't matter. So that was the end of your IV preparation and IV medication. Similarly, you have for wound care. Now, even when you're doing the dressing, I mean, this is also another, I'm going to go through this little quickly. I'm looking at the timing also, that, tray, the cleaning of the tray, the trolley, sorry, the top of the trolley has to be empty to clean. So this is some of the gaps that I have seen in some of my dressing, some of my trainings. They say that sometimes this is not being done. Then gather the equipments and apply apron, open dressing pack, position waste bag, how you are opening. So this one also has multiple times of hand hygiene. And finally, again, cleaning and returning the things, and then final hand cleaning. Now, these pictorial checklists can be found on the internet for all the different procedures. Those who are interested to adopt this, you can definitely go and look at this, and you can, with your organization's permission, you can use them, because you use this picture and you start checking your stuff. And for learning also, it is very easy because it is in a visual format, so you can see what needs to be done. So I will definitely come back to all of you in a moment, and I will allow people to ask question and discuss. Okay. Now, a few important points that is being uh, recommended by entity. The following practices and equipment are prohibited in the organization during ANTT procedures. That means they are recommending that small alcohol swabs should not be used. It should be larger, alco wipes. I'm not sure whether we have that in India. Do not drop your equipment into your tray. Do not drop them like that. There is a risk that key parts will touch the tray. You don't want that to happen. You have to open, remove it in your hand, making sure the key parts are not touching anywhere. Prepare the injection. Don't just open the syringe and say, now I will prepare my injection. The key parts should never be touched. This is very, very important. So only key parts can touch the key parts, but your hands can never touch the key parts. Now that is very, very important. And don't leave key parts unprotected or exposed. So you cannot see this. This is okay. Now, never flick off. If you are using a syringe thing, never flick off the things, because again your gloved hand can touch the key part. So you don't want to do that. So these pictorial things are good reminders for us. Now, I'm very sure that some of you must have seen that nurses, for they say, instead of labeling, I will leave this inside the vial. So I know that this is Targocid, this is that injection. This is definitely not recommended. You are supposed to label them. If you have multiple drugs, you can label them, but do not use tray and use this, because a needle stick injury can go up, and also the bungs which are there around the needle making things wet, so no longer effective because it's sitting on the tray. So don't do this. If you are practicing ANTT, we are supposed to practice ANTT, right? And this is not here in India. I don't think that any one of us are using paper trays, so we are using plastic trays. One of the practical advice that I would like to give those who are sitting here is that, what we did was to ensure that this nurses are able to practice things in a no shortcut manner. We actually gave one plastic tray to each bed, so that there is one individual tray, and nurses will always find a tray for preparing the medication and preparing the cannulation tray, etc. Central line and catheterization, they all have dedicated sets. So that is, they are invasive and they are surgical ANTT, we know that. This one, what we actually went through the procedure, is a standard ANTT. So this entire ANTT is actually a knowledge, a framework which is free, which is very simple, and you can standardize the safe practices, and you can spread it across the organization, whether it is ward or ICU, it doesn't matter. So the foundation needs to be very strong when you are actually looking at the entity. So one thing that you can remember, this is an acronym that is there. A stands for always wash hands effectively. N stand for non-touch technique always. Take appropriate equipment precautions, take steps to protect key parts and key sites. I mean, this is the summary of the entire entity, all the principles that we discussed. We can put it down into this, acronym entity, the key points. Yes. So now coming to those who want to have certificates. So please, you can log on to this website www.signiahealthcareacademy.com and take the post test. It's a very simple 10 questions, and if you get 80 marks, you can download your certificate there itself. You have to create an account there. When you go there, you can create your account with your password, and you will have that course there, which is free. So you can go ahead and do. And this video, which is, when it is ready, I will upload it there also. But those who attended the current session, I don't think you need to look at the video again. And there is a PDF that I have uploaded, which you can download for your own reading purpose. Okay. So with that, thank you very much for being with me for all this time. And we still have about 7-8 minutes. So what I will do, I will now stop the recording, and then I will make sure everybody can ask question and I can answer those questions. I did not do that in between because I would like to upload this on the learning portal. That's the only reason I did not allow that. I have seen some hands going up, so you can definitely ask the question. So thank you all once again, and please make sure that you take the post test and download your certificate. Take care. So I'm just